Hey everyone, are you ready to hear about the way subtle visual and audio cues give away the solutions to mundane mysteries from a 9-year-old show? I'm hoping you'll all follow along and use both inductive and deductive reasoning to keep pace with me, because who doesn't enjoy clicking on a video hoping to relax only to be told to use their brain? Whoa, let's not get crazy here. Look, that was just a bit of hyperbole. We're gonna have fun today, I promise. I talk a lot about Kyoto Animation's attention to detail in my videos because I think they do it better than anyone else in the industry. So what do you think would happen if you asked these guys to make a mystery show for you? If you answered some of the greatest uses of animation to effectively convey information to the viewer, then congratulations, you're me. To keep this short, because I can already tell that this is going to be a long video, Hyouka does so much to help the viewer solve its mysteries at the same pace as its main character Hotaru Oriki, all without making the solutions obvious. So I thought it would be fun to break the show down mystery by mystery and talk about all the clever little helping hands. This is essentially both a strategy guide for a show, which I'm pretty sure has never existed until now, and a big excuse for me to rain more praise upon this masterpiece than I already have. Please keep in mind that we'll be going through the entire show, so spoilers are fair game. Alright, let's get started. Our first mystery is a great introduction to the kind of clues KyoAni likes to leave for the viewer. Oriki is making his way up to the classic lit club where he'll meet Eru Chitanda, a girl who's going to use her boundless curiosity to put his personal motto in serious danger.
やらなくてもいいことならやらない。やらなければいけないことなら手短に。
It doesn't take long for this process to start, as once Oriki enters the room, it's soon discovered that Chitanda was here by herself with the door locked from the outside. Oriki's good friend Satoshi Fukabe shows up, and after some discussion they realize that Oriki has the only key students have access to and the door can't be locked from the inside. Starved for clues, the viewer begins hanging on every word, and this is when Chitanda mentions that she entered the club room about 3 minutes before Oriki did. If that's the case, then whatever locked her in should have been seen by him as he was making his way up here. Sure enough, looking back, we can see a repairman walking down the stairs right after locking Chitanda in. And if you think it's dumb that an employee locked a student in a classroom without noticing she was there, there's this scene where the three go to confirm their theory by watching him work for like 15 minutes, and he doesn't so much as glance at them. Our second mystery is our first foray into the unorthodox, as this one is less about figuring out whether or not the Silk Spider Society exists and more so about why Oriki was so enthusiastic to solve it when we just learned that this goes against everything he stands for. Hyouka's characters are actually good, so the thought of one of them changing their outlook on life on a dime is out of the question. There have to be clues in these scenes that can help us figure this out. Firstly, the Silk Spider Society was brought up to Chitanda because Oriki shifted the focus of conversation from some other mystery to this one. Second, he has Satoshi explain the mystery to Chitanda so he can work on his homework, taking glances at her while he's doing it to make sure she's still engaged. Third, we can see him sweating as he finishes his work, and he breathes a sigh of relief once it's completed. He wanted to get his homework done before Chitanda dragged him off somewhere to solve another mystery, but there's more. Once Satoshi finishes the story, Oriki stands up and tells Chitanda that they're going to go investigate the existence of this secret club. And I gotta say, as someone who's been classically trained in reading subtle facial cues by LA Noir, I think this man is lying right now.
もちろん探すんだよ、そのメモ。
So why would he deliberately lead the group out of the classroom to some bulletin board? In fact, why would he get so excited to do so, even doing a fist pump under the table when Chitanda expressed interest? Well, given how important finishing his homework clearly was to him and knowing his energy-conserving personality, I'll bet that this bulletin board is close to wherever he needs to drop his work off and leave for the day, allowing him to take care of all his current obligations in one fell swoop. He even reminds us of how much he hates wasting energy while standing in front of the board, just in case you needed a refresher to figure out his motive. Also, a quick side note, this mystery is about as amusing as it is telling for Oriki's character. I love how he's already been caught in Chitanda's web, forcing himself to devise these elaborate plans in order to dodge her curiosity because he can't say no to her. And since we're here, we might as well crack the other mystery Satoshi brought up. A girl walks into the music room just as Moonlight Sonata starts starts to play on a CD. Somebody then stands up in the middle of the room with bloodshot eyes and unkempt hair, and the girl runs away, claiming she saw a ghost. I feel like any reasonable person would just assume that this show doesn't have any supernatural elements, so the ghost was probably just somebody waking up from a nap. Even the visuals that describe this story look like they were designed to be smoke and mirrors. And finally, after like 5 minutes, we're on episode 2 of 22. If you're watching this right now, that means I managed to put this video together in a timely manner, but I can assure you that my past self was crying when he wrote that sentence. Anyways, library books. The same one is being returned every Friday, even though the lend period is 2 weeks, and this is the 5th week in a row. Our first clue comes from Oriki's observation when he sees the book. Now, why is this a clue? Because with mystery shows like this, the viewer has the power to assume that everything we see has a purpose. A seemingly one-off comment that means nothing to the characters in the world means everything to us because we know that a writer deliberately put those words in there. This of course wouldn't matter if a narrative trick is being employed, but Hyouka doesn't have any of those, so we're good. With that out of the way, we can assume that the book's size is a factor in this case. We soon learn that the book is being checked out by a different person each time. They're all girls, and it would be impossible for them to use the book for reading because they pick it up after lunch and return it before school ends. Now your mind is racing with ideas. It's such a big book, it's probably being used as a paperweight, maybe even a pillow, but Oriki shoots both of these ideas down when Chitanda and Mayuka bring them up. Alright, fair enough. Let's shift our focus back to the other clues. Oriki tells us the pattern of these girls checking this book out is far too specific of a trend for them to be acting individually, so they must be using it in a group. And finally, Chitanda uses her exceptional sense of smell to tell us that the book smells like paint thinner. Okay, so a group of people are taking this book to use it in an environment with a lot of paint. If I had to guess, I'd say it's being used for an art class. And since my paperweight idea was shot down, I can only guess that its size could make a striking motif for a painting. Special thanks to the dialogue for helping us get through this one, and we'll probably be using it again very soon. Mystery 5 is the first of what I've dubbed the no-shitters, because you can miss like half of the clues and still come to the right conclusion because of how obvious it is. Let me know if any of this guy's behavior tips you off on a particular crime he's committing. First off, he installed a motion detector on the walls. Second, the door to his clubroom is locked, and it takes the guy like a full minute to unlock it despite the fact that the room is so small. Third, Oriki claims he smells of deodorant, and it's worth noting that Chitanda has no sense of smell right now, which is clearly being used for narrative purposes. Fourth, he acts excessively nervous when he hears that Chitanda's family works closely with his, and he does his best to make sure that they don't enter the club room. Fifth, once he finally lets them in, we see an open window, a bunch of fans, and a huge blockade of boxes in the middle of the room, almost comically pushed together in the most rushed and sloppy way possible. Gee, what could he possibly be hiding? Drugs. It's drugs. You know it, I know it, this guy sucks at hiding it. It's also reasonable to infer that he's keeping the anthologies in the same safe he's storing the goods in, or else he would have helped the group find what they were looking for. After all, why would he want them to stay any longer than they need to when every second means another chance for them to discover what he's doing? Alright, this next mystery is Hyouka's first long-form one, which spans multiple episodes. For today's purposes, I'm going to be focusing on episode 4, where the group gets together at Chitanda's house and shares their findings, all in an effort to piece together what happened to her uncle Sekatani Jun at their high school 45 years ago. The way this works is each person gives their theories and shares their information, and then a large chunk of each theory is debunked by the next person. We're going to take the information that is kept in play and see if we can use it to stitch a narrative together. So from Chitanda, we learn that Sekatani Jun was a sacrifice. He was also the one who named the anthology containing his story Hyouka, which means ice cream in Japanese. From Mayuka, we learn that the incident that got him expelled was a dispute between the students and the teachers, and the students were led by him. We also learn that no violence was involved because it gets rejected by Satoshi's findings. He figured out that the expulsion took place 4 months after an incident in June, meaning Sekatani Jun was expelled in October. So to clear all of this up, we can assume this. this. Sekatani Jun was the leader of a student resistance against the teachers during the month of June. He was also a sacrifice for the group, and he was expelled 4 months later in October, right after the Culture Festival. The Culture Festival and the sacrifice are the two most important things to note here because they provide a potential why and how. If this protest was about the Culture Festival, it would make sense that its leader was expelled after it was over as to not cause more student outrage. I also find it hard to believe that this Classics Club president suddenly rose up to be the leader of the entire student body. And there's this part where the author of Hyouka's preface clearly states that this was not the story of a hero. Sorry Chitanda, but subjective or not, we have all seen third-person glasses on, so this information can be taken as fact. No narrative tricks here, remember? This will mean that Sekatani Jun was forced into leadership by the student body and then sacrificed after the group obtained what they wanted, which involved the Culture Festival. This all turns out to be the truth, and with that last part at the end where Orki determines why Sekatani Jun called the anthology Hyouka, all you have to do is look up the title of the show on Google Translate out of curiosity like I did, and then have the ability to decipher a simple pun. I know that's not a very sound explanation, but this is one of the few things I figured out all by myself while watching through, so if I can do it, you can too. Mystery 7 is one of my favorites because it's a fantastic example of KyoAni's impeccable visual storytelling. Chitanda ended up getting angry with her math teacher Omichi because he accidentally skipped a day in the lesson plan and yelled at the class when they couldn't solve an equation. The question is, why did he make the mistake? And it just so happens that the answer is sitting right in front of you the entire episode. See, Omichi checks the nameplates of every classroom he enters and then uses that to find his notes for each class every day. His notes look a little something like this. So which part do we focus on? Well, there are a bunch of snacks in the middle of the table that are shaped like letters of the alphabet, and KyoAni makes sure that you notice them by flaunting them in front of the camera to do some creative shots. Classes go from A to D at this school, so write them all down and they all look too distinct from one another. But write them in lowercase and we can see a clear similarity between A and D. Chances are Omichi made the D look like an A in his notes, and he went by that instead of the proper schedule. I love how this mystery's big hint for the viewer is both the most obvious and obscure clue ever, hiding right under our noses. It's just such a cool thing to add, making an otherwise decent episode into one that's worth praising on the same level as all the other ones. Mystery 8 pushes us out of the club room and into an inn where both Mayaka and Chitanda see a hanging ghost in room 7 that apparently haunts the place. This one is an example of Hyouka's superb flow of information. A bunch of small clues pile up, making the full picture clearer and clearer the further you go. First things first, Orki notices a girl running out of the inn wearing what looks to be a yukata the night the ghost was seen. Whatever caused this quote-unquote ghost to appear must have occurred after 10 p.m. because the shutters in room 7 were closed when Chitanda went to bed. This mystery girl is now a primary suspect because she was likely the only person awake after 10. So who is this? Well, maybe it's this girl who's acting stupid suspicious while being asked simple questions about room 7. A little while later, we see the yukata she was wearing on one of her sisters, one who is noted to be extremely cagey with her personal possessions. If we add in the fact that a summer festival took place last night and that it rained, everything slides into place. This girl wanted to wear her sister's yukata to the summer festival, but knowing that she sucks and won't just let her borrow it, she took it without her knowing. Once it got rained on, she took it to room 7 and hung it up because no guests are allowed to stay there, opening up the shutters to speed up the process. Alright, that one was pretty simple. This next one is not. Hyouka's movie mystery is another multi-episode ordeal, and if we're being technical here, it has two solutions. The first revolves around the issue Irisu wanted to resolve, that being the fact that the movie is awful, Jesus Christ, oh god, oh man, what am I going to do? The second is finding out how the original scriptwriter Hongo wanted the unfinished film to end. You might be wondering why I'm tackling both solutions when the first one is just a farce that leads into the second, and yeah, I don't blame you. But if you remember, I mentioned in my first video about Hyouka a million years ago that my brother and I watched this show together, and when we got to this arc, I ended up predicting the first solution while he predicted the second. So in order to honor how freaking cool that moment was, I'm doing both. Plus, it's not like the first one is very hard to figure out. All you have to do is pay attention to how poo-poo garbage the film is, especially with regards to the camera work. Every shot has shaky cam, there's no creativity or direction, and it's all filmed from the same perspective as if it's just some dude standing right next to the rest of the characters. This scene where Mayuka scrubs through the movie and explains why every shot is a world-ending tragedy is exactly what I was doing while I was watching this for the first time. You could blame their inexperience for these mistakes, or you could consider the fact that the cameraman himself uses a flashlight to illuminate stuff in some scenes, and he even bumps into one of the actors towards the end of the film. With these two pieces of evidence, plus the info about Hongo wanting a 7th actor for the movie, I hastily locked in my prediction and laughed maniacally when Oriki repeated my sentiments because I thought I finally got one right. But you know how this story ends. Oriki is wrong, and he eventually figures out both what Hongo wanted and why Irisu tricked him by changing his perspective and gathering evidence on how Hongo felt about the film. The thing is, the stuff he brought to Irisu for this confrontation was gathered off screen, so in order to guess this ourselves, we need to pay attention to everything Hongo specifically asked for. First things first, the rope. This is what we'll use to disprove Oriki's initial theory the second it's presented to us, because this thing isn't present in the film at all despite Hongo's clear intent to include it. Second, this guy's overblown reaction to a simple question reveals that Hongo's vision for the script was not well received. He also teaches us that the death in the film was ad-libbed, so it wasn't in Hongo's script. Then we have the props guy come in who shows us how much fake blood Hongo asked for, as well as how much was actually used for that last minute death. I'm beginning to think Hongo didn't want anyone to die at all if she was this stingy with the blood. It's also worth mentioning that the writer, the genre, and presumably the decision to do a film in the first place was decided through a vote. Really makes you wonder how Hongo felt having no control over this whole thing. My guess is she never wanted a death to occur in the movie, but when everybody clearly thought that was a bad idea, she faked her illness in order to step down without actually saying it. And looking back, I think it's really cool how you can see Oriki's transition from looking for clues in Hongo's actions to looking for clues in her butchered vision, leading to his incorrect answer. It was fun to be able to piece this bad boy together by zeroing in on only Hongo's perspective and tuning out all of the filler information. And before we get on to our next big one, we're gonna take a detour to the OVA. This one is another no-shitter, and it begins with this guy flipping out at some dude, claiming that he was staring at his girl. Oriki thinking I pray I don't have to deal with them is both extremely relatable for anyone who's worked in the service industry before and a perfect setup for him having to deal with them. Chitanda ends up noticing something white on the woman's left ear that disappears later in the day. Thinking it might be a stub or an earring, she asks Oriki to help her look for it. Okay, well that white thing could have been literally anything, so it's gonna take a miracle to figure this out. Oh hey, look, she's smacking her left ear to get the water out. I don't think I'd do that if I knew something metal was supposed to be in there, so that kind of narrows things down, but it's still— oh look, her kid is eating vanilla ice cream. Next. By the way, this episode is way better than people think because of how important it is for Oriki's character arc. Okay, we're moving on for real. And now we've arrived at the inspiration for this video, the Jumoji incident. It's a mystery that spans 6 full episodes, taking place in what I consider to be Hyouka's masterpiece, the school festival arc. I'm very thankful that all I have to do today is expose Mr. Executive Committee President over here as a thief, instead of delving into the intricacies of the narrative. I still get nightmares from the writing process of that video. But right now we've got it so easy that I almost feel bad for Oriki, having to do all this thinking, linking seemingly trivial pieces of evidence together, and using the grammar of a language that I don't even speak to figure things out, when all we have to do to catch this guy is just watch him. There are 2 main pieces of evidence that tipped me off on the culprit, both of them related to his body language. The first comes when Satoshi reports Jumoji's antics to Tanabe. Now, if you've ever seen someone help run an event with hundreds of attendants before, you know that they are always stressed out 24/7, and anything that throws a wrench into their carefully laid schedules will result in a "you've gotta be f***ing kidding me, I don't have time for this." Instead of a normal response like that, we see Tanabe bait Satoshi into bringing Jumoji up by asking if anything interesting is happening, find it amusing that somebody is stealing at an event that he's supposed to be running, mention that this is the second time he's heard of a theft occurring, and then just end the conversation conversation with his fellow executive committee member without discussing a way to handle the issue. Either this guy did it or he needs to be fired. But okay, I get it. That's mostly just speculation. Here's something a little more concrete. KyoAni made the choice to show the Classics Club being hit by the thief before he's revealed to us, even though these scenes happen in reverse order chronologically. If we pay attention to Tanabe and cut out all the visual clutter, we can all but confirm that he's the one behind these thefts. Once Satoshi's phone rings, everybody looks shocked except for Tanabe. He then crosses his arm into his shirt, presumably reaching for something, and when the manuscript bursts into flames, we see him turn to the side and put whatever he pulled out back in. Now, this is all well hidden because your eyes have to make their way through the visual clutter and the massive explosion to see it, but now that I've told you what he does, who do you think the culprit is? Who knows? My guess is probably Maika. Alright, next mystery. So for this next one, Oriki proves that we're all living in the darkest timeline by becoming curious about something. He was reminded of a time when one of his middle school teachers named Ogi walked over to the window in the middle of class in order to admire a helicopter, claiming that he liked them. Satoshi then explains that he didn't have any reaction to a squadron of them flying overhead one day, so him liking helicopters was probably just a cover-up for some other reason. So what do we know about Ogi? Not much, other than the fact that he's been struck by lightning 3 times. What kind of life would he have to live in order to have a miracle like that happen so many times? Well, Oriki provides us with a hint while he's on his way to the library. He stops for a minute to take a look at the mountain range right outside of the city, monologuing some fun facts about it to himself to make sure the viewer has them in their mind. People are more likely to get struck by lightning at higher elevations, so Ogi probably spent a lot of time up there. This is confirmed by Chitanda with a newspaper article she found. It also contains an interview with Ogi where he talks about wanting everyone on the mountains to be protected from life-threatening dangers. Now, what would a helicopter headed for the mountains be doing? If that quote is anything to go off of, I'd say it's a rescue helicopter, and Ogi got excited when he saw it because it means somebody will hopefully come home safe after tragedy befell them on the mountains. This seems like a good point to lock in an answer, and what do you know, it gets confirmed like 40 seconds later. Here's one that doesn't require nearly as much evidence to crack. The solution to this mystery is that a student used counterfeit bills to pay for something at a store, and Oriki had to piece that together from a rushed announcement asking anybody who went to that store yesterday to come to the office. But we don't have to do any of that because the show gift wraps the answer and hands it over to us at the intro of the episode. 4 news articles are on the bulletin board here. One is about a mountain fire, one is about an assassination, and one is about a team of thieves being caught. Once we get into the meat of the episode, none of these things match the scenario described by the announcement. But the article about counterfeit 10,000 yen bills being in circulation, keep that article in your mind while you're listening to the scenario and you'll figure out this mystery a full 20 minutes before Oriki does. Hyouka's New Year's mystery is a bit of a strange one because we already have the solution in our hands. Oriki and Chitanda are locked in a tool shed and they need to let Satoshi and Maika know that without alerting anyone else. The only way to make a mystery out of this is by trying to guess how Oriki is going to get these two to realize what's up, so why not? I did say all of Hyouka's mysteries, so we're going for 100% here. If you're observant, you can catch the fact that both Satoshi and Oriki watched the same period drama earlier today, so making a reference to that which implies the current situation could work out for them. Alright, we're blowing through these now. These last few episodes focus a lot more on bringing everyone's character arc to a satisfying close than the actual mysteries, which I'm very thankful for. It's nice to have an intermission before this last little surprise I have in store for you all. But for now, here's another no-shitter. So Maika made Valentine's Day chocolates for Satoshi last year, and he rejected them because he's as smooth as butter, and it doesn't count unless you grow the cocoa beans in your backyard, damn it. This year is different though. The chocolate looks way nicer, and Satoshi is a much more mature person. In fact, he tells Oriki he's headed up to the club room where the chocolate is waiting for him, while Oriki goes to the library to wait out a snowstorm. Chitanda comes down from the club room to ask where Satoshi is, and Oriki says it's been 30 minutes since he started making his way up there. A while later, Chitanda comes bursting into the library again with Satoshi to tell Oriki that Maika's chocolates have been stolen because she left the door open to the club room. Satoshi acts uncharacteristically apathetic, and when Oriki says he'll help Chitanda look, he seems surprised in an oh crap kind of way. This poster guy on climb the stairs here then narrows the search down to a couple of suspects for us. Satoshi, Oriki, Chitanda, and whoever else has been on the 4th floor of this building after school has ended for almost an entire hour. Huh. I wonder who could have done this. And now we arrive at the final episode. Admittedly, this is probably Hyouka's weakest mystery, but again, this episode isn't about that stuff. So the Doll Festival parade Chitanda is taking part in has run into a snag, as the bridge they planned on crossing to circle back to the starting point is under construction. Everybody comes up with dumb ideas on how to fix it, and then this guy suggests that they slightly extend the route so they can cross a different bridge. This ends up being the idea everyone goes with, and when the same guy is dressing Oriki up in his uniform, he says something a little strange.
それにめったに見られん行列だからわざわざ帰省してきたんだ。
Okay, why would you say that when this parade is held every year? What makes this one any different? And what makes you so keen on spectating the I get it. They had to cross this bridge in order to see the cherry blossoms bloom out of season. Brown hair over here must have known about the bridge construction and planned to come home and suggest the new route the entire time. Add this to all the information Chitanda gives us about him, such as the fact that he wants to be a photographer, and this theory is beginning to look more and more viable. But who cares about that guy? All I want to know is why Oriki decided he wanted to help Chitanda run her family's business when they get older. You're telling me the dude whose motto is if I don't have to do it, I won't, and if I have to, then make it quick, is willing to lock in his career of choice in early high school? Something's changed, and I've got 4 pieces of evidence here that are going to help us figure this out. First, this change is foreshadowed all the way back in episode 1 after Oriki dodges Chitanda's curiosity with the Silk Spider Society mystery. Satoshi tells him that this wasn't like him at all, and that he's just putting things off. They put a lot of emphasis on that phrase, putting things off. Oriki lets us know that he doesn't want to refuse Chitanda's curiosity, which is consistent throughout the entire show. What changes is his desire to circumvent it. It's a big leap to go from fabricating a mystery to get out of interacting with someone to volunteering to spend your entire professional career with them because you know it will help them out. This is our what, and that's the easy part. Since it seems like Satoshi has a lot of great insight on Oriki's character, we're going to use him again in order to figure out our why. During the movie mystery arc, Satoshi assigns tarot card arcanas to all the members of the group. Oriki takes being called Strength as a personal dig because it's characterized by a woman taming a ferocious lion, implying that he's being controlled by Chitanda, Irisu, and his sister. But after doing 30 hours of research, I found that this interpretation barely scratches the surface. Remember, every detail exists for a reason, so regardless of your opinions on tarot card readings, Strength was deliberately assigned to Oriki by the writer. Tell me if this description reminds you of him at all. The Strength card speaks to the inner strength of the human spirit's ability to overcome any obstacle. Strength is about knowing you can endure life's obstacles. You have great stamina and persistence, balanced with underlying patience and calm. Aside from that part about good stamina, this sounds exactly like Mr. Ace Detective here, but the site goes on to say that the lion, or Oriki in this instance, is a symbol of raw passions and desires. Passions and desires that are exposed to us in this very arc. We see from his conversations with Irisu that Oriki wants to live a rose-colored life among his friends. He wants to be special, to have an ability that few others can claim to have. His dejected appearance during the OVA shows us just how insecure he feels when he fails to live up to those expectations. He has to force himself to accept that it's okay to be wrong sometimes. The site continues, saying that the woman shows the lion that its passions can be expressed in positive ways when inner strength and resilience are applied, transitioning us into the how of this mystery. Chitanda. Throughout the entire show, she pulls Oriki through his character arc, kicking and screaming, and nowhere is that better represented than in the 2 openings. In the first one, we find Oriki walking through town in the rain with an umbrella. He looks up, and the sun pierces through the clouds, causing him to furrow his brow. The ground ground gives out from under him and he's forced to stare at the bright blue sky, taking everything in. It then cuts to a shot of Chitanda bursting into the club room and taking Oriki away somewhere, and then we don't see him by himself for the rest of the opening. The second one is a little more on the nose with its visual storytelling. Oriki falls asleep and dreams that he's become a part of the background. He resides in reflections, whiteboards, windows, what have you. Nobody seems to be able to notice him except Chitanda, who pulls him out and brings him back to reality. I'm sure that there are dozens of examples I could have given of Chitanda slowly nudging Oriki along on his journey, but I adore both of these openings too much to not bring them up. Alright, so we know that Oriki is changed by throwing away his motto in favor of living a more rose-colored life. He did this because he had a desire to be special, and that burning desire was nurtured by Chitanda in order to turn him into the person he is today. All that's left is figuring out when this change took hold, and this might be the easiest piece of the puzzle to find. Episode 19. Oriki plays a game with Chitanda in order to prove that she can't put any faith in him. After the game ends, he completely forgets why he even started it in the first place. When Chitanda suggests that they make a mystery out of it, he flashes this smile. I don't think anyone who looks like this while breaking their personal motto holds it very dear to them anymore. And in the 3 episodes after this, Oriki proves that he's changed. He agrees to go to the shrine with Chitanda and goes along with her strange request to not call for help when they get locked in the shed, even though it's an easy out. He agrees to help find Mayaka's chocolates and even grills the hell out of Satoshi for doing what he did. Could have saved a lot of energy by just letting that one go. And of course, we come back to this final scene where he decides to bury his personal motto for good and live the life he's always wanted to. Alright, I'm tired. This script has gone on long enough already, so I'm gonna conserve a little energy by half-assing this outro. Thanks for watching, detectives. You're all probably qualified to be forensic scientists now. Hyouka's good. I like it. You should watch it. Also, here's an interview conducted by some big publication talking about how cool I am. I don't know. Good evening, sir. I heard that you're...
Hello and welcome to my show. This is the show. Here's when we talk about the interviewee. Welcome. What's your name again?
Can I speak? Okay,
welcome,
so I've been told that you're going.
So you're here to talk about an anime, probably. What do you do?
I'm here to talk in general. Can you let me do that?
No, I'm the host here. I ask the questions. Answer when I ask. You fucking dickwad.
Okay, so my favorite anime is School Days. It's really good. I like the part where he has sex. How was your day?
We're not here to talk about that.